Welcome to episode 7 of the Code Breakdown. I'm your host, Andrew DuPont.
And I'm Brian Miller.
In this episode, we're going to do something a little bit different. We are going to break down a gem that provides a tool for automating the running of Jasmine tests from the command line.
I'm actually really glad that you wrote this, Drew. If I had to hear one more time about how difficult it was for you to run all the Jasmine tests, I was going to do something drastic.
Hey, well, if it's not pain that drives development, what else is it?
All right, so we're going to be doing a demo?
Yeah, I think so. That's the plan right now. I was thinking earlier that maybe we should just build a little tiny URI utility library to do things like get the host name of a URL, etc.
Sure, that sounds great.
Okay.
So you've already got the gem installed right now, don't you?
I do, yeah. It's as simple as doing gem install Snapdragon. And Snapdragon, of course, is the name of the tool. And it's basically modeled after the RSpec command line interface, pretty much. And it allows you to run Jasmine specs in a similar fashion. So now that we have Snapdragon installed, let's get an editor up. So right now let's put an example spec directory and let's create, what are we going to call this? URI?
Yes.
So we can call it URI spec.js. Okay. And then we start like we normally would. And we can start with a describe. And we're going to describe the URI class, right?
Yep.
And we could do that. And what else?
We agreed that this was just it was gonna take a string and then give us one helper method to get a host. I think that was what we were gonna start off with, right?
Yeah. So constructs a URI object you were given a string of a URI. Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's drive out our first test. So this, actually, before we drive that out, let's just show what it looks like to run that from the command line. So we can just do Snapdragon and then the spec file. So in this case, it's example spec URI underscore spec.js. When we run that, we can see right now it runs the examples for that whole file, and it runs example 1, and it says it passes because if we go back to the file, it's an it that is doing nothing. So there's no expectation to fail, so it's passing. Let's try to actually drive this out now. The other thing, let's see. What do we want to do here? So we're going to have some URI equals URI new URI with some URI here. I don't know. Actually, even better. Cool. So we're expecting something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what the actual code would look like to construct that.
Okay.
So we can drive that out. I haven't finalized this and pushed up my changes to my vimrc and my Vim testing plugin, but I did integrate Snapdragon into that earlier today. And we can see that I just ran the tests and it's failing with an error saying it can't find variable URI. So we can go back here and we can then be like, okay, well, we got to define URI somewhere. So let's edit a new file, which is going to be example source, what is it, URI.js.
Yep.
Okay. And now that we have this, we need to define a new, we could do URI. Actually, how would you do this? Would you do this? which is
Yep.
what is this? This is
Just
URI string.
Yeah, you can do that. And then just
Would you do that versus doing like function URI stir?
Yeah, I prefer doing it the other way. And then you build and then you can do you have essentially it's a constructor, and then you have all of your properties you bind in later.
Something like that. Does that look cool?
Yeah.
Okay. So now if we bounce back here, we could run this again, but it still won't pass. We'll get the same error because the spec file and Snapdragon don't know where to find the URI class yet. So Snapdragon provides this nifty directive which lets you do a require relative to this. And so we're in example spec right now. So we want to go up a level to source, and then we will be in URI.js. So this require relative directive tells Snapdragon to look relative to this file for this source file and include that in its test run. So if we run it again, this time it passes. Cool? All right. You want to drive out this next part, Brian?
Sure.
Sure. What is this? The
is it get host?
Get host, I guess.
Yeah. So we can just essentially.
If I could type in Vim.
Yeah, I'll get it. So then we can just say the URI is a new URI of something that we know.
Oh. You going to do that outside of the it block, or?
Oh, I didn't even see that.
I did that 3 times today.
Yeah, it's still getting used to the.
It does. Snapdragon sadly doesn't, or Jasmine rather, doesn't bitch at you too badly when it comes to doing that. Whereas RSpec yells at you pretty loudly usually.
Yeah. So it turns a host from the provided URI. So go ahead and do that. So we should be able to then do the URI.get host.
You got to do here. It's
oh yeah.
Expect. Oh, actually, this needs to be.
That's what it was. Expect to be.
Yeah. To be something. We need to modify the URI that's passed into the constructor above to include .com at the end of GitHub.
We do.
Gotta love pair eyes.
All right. So that looks good. Run that.
Undefined is not a function. Evaluating URI get host. So, what does that mean? Wait.
That means that.
Does that mean URI is undefined, or does that mean that get host?
No, get host is undefined. Oh, let's see here. Let's see if I can remember how in the world I did this.
How you did what?
Past.
Wait, that doesn't work.
No, it doesn't work. Oh man,
I haven't implemented that Vim plugin yet.
Yeah, we need to do that. So we can say URI dot prototype get host.
Yeah.
Whoa, hello.
Hello. See, that's the way I like to do it, is with prototype like that.
Yeah, I do.
So where did we leave off?
It is failing because it's not returning the right thing.
Because it's not returning anything.
Yeah. So we can do. All right. Well, let's just do this then. This URI. So let's just call a replace on. Take a string. So we'll just make it really.
Regex. Gots to love the regex. Okay.
Does it take a? Will it take a regular expression, or does it have to be a string?
I think it has to be a string in JavaScript. It's been a while, but I'm pretty sure it has to be a string. Even though it still looks like a Ruby regex object. So you're gonna nuke that HTTPS, and you're going to.
Well, this is also assuming that there is. Well, that should be fine because if it isn't there, it won't match it. And then we're going to replace from essentially a slash
Followed by anything
to the end of the string with.
Cool. And then we're going to return that.
Yes.
Let's just try that for now.
Let me go ahead and be explicit about it.
Yes.
And
are there implicit returns in JavaScript?
I want to say there's not, because I do remember actually getting bitten a little bit by that. It's not.
Is our expectation incorrect? Or is it just not stripping anything?
It doesn't look like it's stripping anything. Did I do the replace right? JavaScript replace.
Let's see. Unless these quoted things, maybe it's not required to be quoted.
It's, you know what? No, yeah, it's not required to be quoted. That was the problem.
My bad.
No, that's all right. I was right there with you. Whoa, look at that!
It's passing. Awesome.
I did it right.
You did it right. Okay, so I want to throw a little curveball at this real quick. Returns a host from provided URI. Well, actually, the fact that I'm writing a when means I'm missing a describe block or a context. When provided URI contains contains surrounding white space. What do we do in that case?
I don't know. That is going to cause a problem with that, isn't it?
I think so.
That first replace should, because I'm.
Oops. Let's say we got a bunch of white space here, because I don't know. Maybe we're grabbing this URL out of something else.
Well, and you can never be. I mean, you can never be entirely sure that the stuff that you're getting is formatted the way you want it to be.
So let's run this and see what happens. Okay, so expected that totally messed up string to be github.com. So I know that jQuery has this awesome trim method, which will trim the white space at the beginning and the ending of strings. Maybe we can use that. Let's let's go back here, and what is it? It would be like jQuery.trim, and then that, I think.
That probably won't work. We need to trim
we gotta
the
trim
URI
before.
stir.
You are right. We need to
So
trim
right before the replace. Yeah.
something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's go back and try that. Just run that one. Can't find variable $sign. That's because we haven't included jQuery.
All right.
So let's do another require relative. And I have jQuery, what? There. Source. jQuery -2.0.2.min. 2.0.2.min.js in the source path. So I can just add another require relative and run my tests. What happened now? Reference. We still got a failure. Type undefined, not a function. Evaluating URI get host. But there's a reference error where it can't find $sign. Oh, I know why. It's because we are requiring URI, which before we're requiring jQuery.
So
if we
order matters with that stuff.
Yes, order does matter. Because the jQuery code, or the code that we wrote here in URI.js, if we go back and look at that, uses $trim. So when it tries to parse that code, it looked originally and said, hey, it's got this $sign thing, but it didn't know what the hell that was. I believe that's the case. So that solved it.
There we go.
So now we have 3 things running. So just to do a little recap on Snapdragon command, we have Snapdragon, and we can pass it a directory. So we could do example spec, and it'll run all of the spec files in that directory. We could do Snapdragon example spec a specific file, or we can do a specific line number on a specific file. What else? We also provide Snapdragon server, which takes the same arguments that Snapdragon command does, and it actually runs a little web server and then spins up your browser, opening a new tab to the correct page to run the tests in the browser. That's useful when you are trying to debug your code and you're not getting enough feedback from just the failed expectations or the exceptions in your actual tests when you run Snapdragon. So I use that just to drop into the actual debugger in the browser when I get stumped on what's going on with the test. But that's about it. You have any questions, Brian?
I don't. It looks pretty awesome.
Yeah. So a number of people have pinged me about the first episode of Code Breakdown, where I gave that rough presentation on the high levels of BDD. And in that presentation, people noted that I kind of broke down the different types of testing. And people were wondering if we would provide some detailed explanation of behavioral testing versus state-based testing.
All right. So next episode, it looks like it's going to be state-based testing versus behavioral testing. We'll dive into that, some of the stuff that Drew talked about in his earlier presentation. So look forward to that.
Yep. Sounds great. I'll see you guys next time.